Alrighty, folks. Welcome on back to Lost Odyssey. Today, we are doing more 1,000 Years of Dreams, and we're doing a chorus of cicadas. A chorus of cicadas. This forest is home to a priceless treasure. A marvelous and exceedingly rare creature lives here. You could search the entire continent and never find another such habitat. Of course, the value of our treasure is not apparent at first glance. The village elder holds up a cup of liquor made from fermented berries as he speaks. His answers have kept watch over this tiny village for generations. It is summer, and the massed cries of 1,000,000 cicadas pour down on the small fort that guards the entrance to the village. The chorus of insects sounds like a steady rain. I wonder if you gentlemen understand what I mean. The elder scans the dozen or so powerfully built men gathered at the fort. All of them wear a look of puzzlement. All but one, that is. "You said your name is Chaim?" asks one of the villagers. "You seem to know what he's talking about." Chaim nods and points upwards. "It's the cicadas," he says. A stir goes through the villagers. With a delighted smile, the elder says, "So you know, do you?" From delighted, the men in armor share suspicious glances. Oh, far from delighted. All are mercenaries. They've been hired by the village to protect the forest's treasure. Hey, wait just a second there," rumbles the voice of one soldier, perhaps emboldened by the liquor. "Are you telling me this treasure we're supposed to protect is just cicadas? What's so special about them? They're everywhere." "That is true," says the elder, "which is why I said the value of our treasure is not obvious at first glance." "They sound just like any cicadas I've ever heard." Another of the mercenaries says with a look of amazement, "Yeah, how is this chorus of cicadas different from any other? They sound just like the ones in my home." All the other soldiers laugh in agreement. "Absolutely," says one. "No different," says another. The elder and the villagers, however, are not amused. They turn to Chaim as the elder asks him, "Will you help us protect our treasure?" "That's what I'm here to do," he replies. "Tell me again, Chaim, do you really know the meaning of the treasure of this forest?" "I do." "Then let me ask you this. Do you know when this summer's battle will bear fruit?" Chaim takes a sip of his liquor, releasing a long, slow breath, and says, "In 75 years. We're fighting for the summer 75 years from now. Is that what you mean?" Another stir goes through the group of villagers. The elder, with a great look of satisfaction, nods deeply and refills Chaim's cup. To the stunned mercenaries, the elder says, "We have protected our cicada chorus generation after generation. The ones who made it possible for us to hear this summer's chorus, listen, it sounds like pouring rain, are the villagers who were grown-up men 75 years ago, when I was just a boy. The chorus that shook the forest last summer was protected 76 years ago, and next summer's the cicadas protected 74 years ago will start singing together. This is how we have protected the forest cicadas over the years. Do you gentlemen now see how much it means to us?" It is a matter of simple arithmetic. After the eggs are buried in the ground, the cicadas that live in this forest spend 75 long years in the larval stage. At last, in the summer of their 75th year, they become mature insects, come out of the ground, and sing like mad in the treetops. For a short week or two, they remain alive. Just before they die, they come down from the trees, mate, and bury their eggs in the ground. The new crop of eggs then spend another 75 long years in the earth. The fact that we can hear the cicada chorus this summer means only one thing. that the forest was at peace 75 years ago. Similarly, if the forest remains at peace this summer, the villagers will be able to hear the chorus 75 years from now. We've used what little money we have to pay you gentlemen to assemble here for this, to make the forest resound with the cicada chorus in 75 years. All mercenaries but Chaim slowly or openly show their disappointment. Wait just a second now, Grandpa, says one soldier standing ramrod straight. You mean to say we're supposed to risk our lives to pretend to bunk a bunch of bugs? Exactly. And even supposing we succeed in what we risk our lives for, the results won't show up for 75 years? That is precisely what I mean. Come on, old man. You must be kidding. If it were money or valuables, that would be one thing, but we might lose our lives here. For what? Bugs? Well, you are mercenaries after all. Okay now, Grandpa. I'm going to have to ask you one last thing. I know this village is poor, and I know you people have had to skimp and save to put this money together. There's no question about that. But when you say this is for bugs, for 75 years from now, you're not living in the same world I'm living in. For something like that, you're willing to spend every last bit of money you've got and, in the bargain, get us to gamble our lives? Are you insane? We want the children 75 years from now to hear the chorus, the cicada chorus, for themselves. What's so strange about that? Now we are having trouble understanding you. Don't toy with me, old man. I can't take a job like that, the man shouts and storms out of the fort. Some of the other mercenaries call out to him, Hey, wait for me. I'm coming with you. Risk our lives for bugs? What a rotten deal that is. And they hurry after him. One man after another disappear with a parting remark. I'm keeping my advance, though, several of them add. The only fighter left in the fort is Chaim. The downpour of cicada cries continue unabated. The whole forest sounds like one gigantic creature. One young man is working the lookout post in the fort in the place of the departed mercenaries. He asks Chaim, Are you all right with this? I'm fine. I knew what I was getting myself into. I heard after they left, those men are a bad bunch. It's true. They're really in it for what they can get after the job is done. They're fine until they finish protecting the village from an enemy. Then they start asking for bonuses. They grab valuables and harass villagers. We saved the village for you, right? It wouldn't hurt you to give us a little extra, they say. The reason this year's mercenaries quit is because they realized there was no hope for any bonuses out of this village. Why do you stay, Chaim? The young man asks. There must have been a lot of jobs that would have paid you more. I just thought it wouldn't be a bad idea to risk my life for something 75 years in the future for a change. That's all. The young man nods his head thoughtfully. Then he tells Chaim one of the old stories of the village. Long ago, way before I was born, when the elder was still a boy, there was a summer when the cicadas didn't sing at all. Of course, this means that 75 years before that, there was a battle that raged in the forest. The elder says that the summer forest without the cicadas chorus was so sad and lonely, it was horrifying. It actually gave him the chills. The trees themselves were alive, but it felt as if the whole forest had died. Sitting alone in the silent forest, he felt so lonely he wanted to cry. And worse, he felt intense anger towards our ancestors for not having protected the forest 75 years earlier. The elder tells this story whenever he has a little too much to drink. Chaim nods in silence. I know all about that, he almost lets himself say, but he swallows his words and smiles instead. The young man goes on. So anyhow, when the elder was sitting and crying in the forest, he says a traveler came along, a young man, big and strong, a man like you, Chaim. And he said to the elder, Don't ever forget how sad and lonely you are today. When you grow up, make sure you never let the children who will come 75 years after you feel this way. The elder says he doesn't remember the man's face, but he will never forget his words. He tells the story to the young people of the village over and over. Chaim nods again, saying nothing, but the skin of his back seems to creep beneath his shirt. All these years, the elder has kept the promise he made to the traveler. No matter how much the mercenaries might have pressed him, he has never let them do anything that will ruin the forest. He has kept on good terms with the neighboring villages to avoid making enemies. He has sometimes entered into dealings that were not to our advantage and lost many chances for us to make money. This is why the village is still so poor. The young man gives a self-depreciating chuckle. Still, not one person in the village resents the elder for what he has done. The village kids have always gone into the forest to bathe themselves in the shower of the cicada chorus. That is just how we grew up. We took it for granted. We all feel nothing but gratitude towards the elder and all the ancestors who came before him, who have enabled us to hear the cicada chorus every year. Chaim says nothing in reply, but he begins to savor the creeping feeling across his back. He brings to mind the face of that young boy he met so long ago, more than 80 years ago. "Why aren't the cicadas singing?" the boy sobbed. "Why is there not even one cicada this year? Why did our ancestors burn down the forest back then?" Wait, what? But he had a gleam in his eye, and that same gleam, hidden by wrinkles, still resides in the eyes of the elder. Passed down from one generation to the next, is there in the eyes of the young man guarding the fort with Chaim. This is the very reason that Chaim is here. Now the village, which has kept the peace for so many years, is about to be attacked. The neighboring country is expanding its power. Its army has violated the border and is heading this way. The prospects for victory are slim. The elder says, "If you can get us through the summer, that is all we need. All we ask is that you help us prevent them from devastating the forest until the cicadas have planted their eggs." The neighboring country is not likely to show much interest in this poor village, which is merely a pathway for the army marching towards the city beyond the forest. If the village can hold out until the end of the summer and surrender with the coming of fall, the enemy will probably charge straight through the forest and head for the city. The elder says, and when, after a nice little visit, they leave us, we'll have to offer them a parting gift. They can have this worn-out old head of mine. Laughing, he mimes cutting off his own head. The elder has transcended an unseemly attachment to the world. He has lived a full life. Now, all he wants to do with his remaining time is give the children, 75 years in the future, a chance to hear the cicadas. "Tell me one thing," Chaim says to the young man, bringing his sword closer to hand. "What's that? When you're all grown up, you will be able to bet your life on the future that is still 75 years away." "I will," he replies without the slightest hesitation. "We can't see the joyful faces of children 75 years from now, but I do know that the forest has to be filled with the crying of the cicadas every summer, whether now or next year or 75 years from now, or even beyond that. That is what they call the grown-up's responsibility. And I'm not the only one who believes this. All the young people of the village do." "The elder has raised some damn good young people, I see." "What's that? Did you say something?" "No, nothing at all." Chaim holds himself in readiness, staring straight ahead. Dust clouds well up on the horizon. An enemy unit seems to be approaching. The cicadas cry without ceasing. The enemy is coming. All right, it's time. Chaim heads out into battle. The cicadas' chorus reverberates endlessly, as if playing the song of life. You know, I never much liked cicadas. They're too annoying for me. I've never been able to tune out sounds. So, like, I can't tune out fans running. I can't tune out Cicadas. I can't tune out water running, stuff like that. So to me, cicadas are extremely annoying because they never go away. It's like 2 weeks of just constant bombardment, and it's super aggravating. Anyway, I hope you folks enjoyed this one. If you did, hit that like button down below. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and checking out some of my other content. And as always, I will catch you folks in the next episode. Stay frosty out there.